Hello, great people. Nigeria's former Minister of Communication during the Muhammadu Buhari regime, Mr. Adebayo Shittu, have asserted that President Bola Tinubu's presidency have moved Nigeria from prosperity to poverty, that most Nigerians are now largely poor, that he himself, despite being a former minister, is now so poor that there was a time that he couldn't even afford 3,000 naira to give to a woman that called him 30 times. In a moment, I'll leave you to hear from Adebayo Shittu himself for you to hear what he said and how he has been surviving and his assessment about the performance of the Tinubu administration. Then when we come back, we'll be looking at the reality in Adebayo Shittu's statement. Is Adebayo Shittu saying the truth about the economy and about his own personal self? We'll be dissecting this issue, the performance of the Tinubu presidency, the implication for 2027, the political attitude of Nigerians, the government and citizen relationship, and a whole lot more on this episode with your sure plug, Dr. Omosholadeji. If you are yet to subscribe, please do well to subscribe to this channel. Let's go and hear from the former Minister of Communication during the administration of Muhammadu Buhari, Mr. Adebayo Shittu. Let's hear from him. Let's hear him.
You can imagine, yesterday, before I left home, before I left Ibadan, somebody phoned me from Bauchi and was begging me for 1,000 naira.
It could be a life-saving 1,000 naira.
Yes, he said for 2 days he had not eaten. Again, about a week ago, somebody also called me, a woman, wanted 3,000 naira. At the time she wanted that money, unbelievably, I myself didn't have that money. And the woman called me 30 times in one day. 30 times. It's not my business to doubt the poverty situation of such people calling. So when you go to such people to ask for their votes or their policy support, they don't care what you are capable of doing. What they are interested in is what they can get out of you today.
So that's weaponization of poverty. Nigerians will be wondering, this is a former minister.
Look, people ask me, when I say I don't have money,
you don't have 3,000.
I ask them, when you leave the office of minister, do you still get paid? You don't still get paid. Unless you have stolen while in office, it becomes very challenging. I thank God that I have about 10 children who are already graduates, and it is resources from their monthly resources that I used to take care of.
You're still in politics.
I'm still in politics.
So how do you cope with present-day Nigeria politics, where when you call for political meetings, you provide for logistics, pay members of your party for attending? How do you cope with
Well, it is not for me at this stage to, tell you how I cope. Otherwise,
and Nigerians will want to know.
This interview will become too personalized. But
we want to learn from your personal experience.
Let me tell you, number one,
there
I
are
have
lessons
always
that
said
will be
it,
drawn.
I will never steal government money. I will never steal it.
There you have it. You just heard from the former Minister of Communication, Adebayo Shittu. Now, Adebayo Shittu's oration can be narrowed down to two main points, which is that Adebayo Shittu is arguing that there is so much poverty in the land, so much so that people are now in a state of destitution, that the presidency of Tinubu had brought unprecedented poverty on Nigeria. The second one is that Adebayo Shittu asserts that he is now poor. He is incredibly poor. So we'll be looking at the reality of these two statements. But first, let me touch on something, which is that Adebayo Shittu said that people are now begging for 1,000 naira, that they haven't eaten for 2 days. First, the first thing that will come to your mind is that if this is true, then one needs to be grateful to God that, we can still have something to eat. And that is where the song comes in when we are in, primary school and secondary school, that some have food but cannot eat. Some can eat but have no food. We have food and we can eat. Some of you will remember that song. Now, let us look at the poverty aspect of it. Truly, indeed, if people can be begging for 1,000 naira because they have not eaten for 2 days, then truly there is poverty in the land. And I can tell you, except you are not a Nigerian, except you don't have family and friends that are Nigerians, except you don't relate with anybody in Nigeria. That's when you will know that there's poverty and hardship in the land, because your phone will be buzzing for different kind of billing. When you sleep and you wake up, you would have received different message from different people. If the ones that don't have your contact, they will go to your social media, they will begin to write you every morning, afternoon, and night. It shows the level of hardship, the level of poverty in the land. And could there have been truly been hardship? Yes, of course, because majority of Nigerians have not really been prosperous people in the true sense of it. Most of them have been living from hand to mouth even before the coming of the Tinubu administration. When the Tinubu administration came, petrol moved from less than 200 naira to about 1,000 naira. The foreign exchange, if you look at it, the price of the dollar before the Tinubu administration and now that Tinubu is there, the cost of electricity, since the subsidy on electricity has been removed. So if you look at all the policies of the Tinubu administration, you see that truly there's bound to be hardship in the land, and even people's take-home pay can no longer take them home. So is it possible in the Nigeria of today for people to be begging for 1K? Of course, I agree with Adebayo Shittu on that. I have my point of disagreement with him, but let me touch on the area of agreement based on the reality that I have experienced. And I also look forward to learning about your own reality in the comment section. Is it possible in Nigeria of today that people couldn't have eaten for 2 days? Yes, of course. It is very much possible. Now, Adebayo Shittu also said that a woman called to beg him for 3,000 naira, and the woman called 30 times. The first thing that comes to mind is that the woman lacks phone ethics, in the sense that you cannot call somebody for 30 times except if there is an emergency. You cannot call somebody more than twice except if there's something very urgent and important. To now cap it up, you are not calling that person because you want to give that person money. You are calling somebody 30 times because you want to borrow money from the person, or you want the person to do giveaway for you. That is lack of phone ethics. But could it be true that somebody could call 30 times? Yes, if that person has no phone ethics, fine. And if that person truly haven't eaten, if it is hunger that is controlling the action of that person. Now, Adebayo Shittu said the person is a woman. Of course, if the woman has kids that are almost dying of hunger and starvation, definitely, why won't she call 30 times? She won't even know that she has called up to 30 times. The 30 times may be like maybe she has just called once or twice, because she is looking to prioritize the welfare of her children so that they don't die of hunger before our very eyes. But then, one thing that will make you to think twice is the statement of Adebayo Shittu that as at that point in time, he himself does not have 3,000 naira. And he said that he usually argued that, do they usually pay ex-ministers when they leave office? Well, they may not be paying them, but the truth is that Adebayo has revealed from his oration that he doesn't have an alternative address. Alternative address in the sense that he has made himself apparently a full-time politician, because if you did not make yourself a full-time politician, you have something that you are doing. Just as the former Minister of Women Affairs that was served by the Tinubu administration, Uju Kennedy Ohaere, I hope I get the pronunciation of the name correctly. Now, Uju Kennedy, when she was sacked, she went back to her law practice and she started practicing law back. She has an alternative address. So what happened to the first calling, the initial profession of Adebayo Shittu? So Adebayo Shittu is even indicting himself as one of the people that is hoping or that looks forward to survive on politics, that made politics a full-time job, and that should not be the case in the true sense of it. Now, I agree with Adebayo Shittu that when people are very poor, at the time of election, if you give them anything, definitely they would vote for you. I absolutely agree with him. And I can add to it that it's true that when you are poor, your defense is weak. There are some level of poverty that you would have attained that you don't even have any negotiating power. You cannot even say anything. Anything that brings come your way, it goes. Because at that point in time, you just need anything you can lay your hands on to survive. So it is true that when you are poor, your defense is weak. And that brings us to imagine that our Nigerian politicians deliberately putting Nigerians in a state of poverty and destitution just so because they can use money to influence them during the election. Are Nigerian politicians weaponizing poverty, weaponizing hardship for their own gain? If that is the case, then they leave much to be desired, because politics, particularly in a democracy, the constitution of a government is to bring succumb to the people, and the people usually have the power of hire and fire. That means that if you don't meet up to expectation, they sack you when election comes. But if you are now using their poverty against them, the poverty that you created, you are now using it against them, then of course it leaves much to be desired in the kind of democracy that we practice in Nigeria. But one thing is that if Shittu truly doesn't have money and he can't dish out money to his constituency after becoming a minister, then Shittu himself will be having problem back home, because most of the people in this constituency will be seeing him as a failure. Let us be realistic with ourselves. Nigerian populace contributes to some of the unholy character that these politicians have, because if you occupy a high position in this country and after that you are living in poverty, you are languishing in anguish, people will be making jest of you that look at him, he's a former senator, see a former governor, see a former minister. That means that the people themselves are expecting you to steal. So we need to point that out on the political orientation of the Nigerian populace as well. But Adebayo Shittu said he didn't steal anything from government. Well, that is left for the Tinubu administration that is in power to investigate, and that account is for him and his creator on Judgment Day. But we need to look at it that we need to try to make things right in our democracy. And one important thing is that Adebayo Shittu couldn't answer. He couldn't answer how he has been able to mobilize people without money. And kudos to the journalists that interviewed him. Because I said it at the beginning that Adebayo Shittu, 2 points can be taken from his conversation, which is the statement of poverty, and he asserted that he's being poor. Adebayo Shittu is not clear about him being poor, because he couldn't answer how he has been able to mobilize, how he has been able to act as a political leader without money, despite the fact that Nigerian politics starts and ends with money. So can we really believe Adebayo Shittu? Well, on him being poor, I really cannot totally agree with him in the true sense of it, based on the reality of Nigeria. But is there poverty in the land? Of course, there's monumental poverty in the land. And this is a call on the government of President Bola Tinubu to begin to look at how to create succumb for the Nigerian people, so that Nigerians can truly live the life of convenience that they deserve, particularly in a democracy. It's been an interesting time with you on this episode of Politing with Dr. Omoshola. Dr. Deji is a political scientist with a PhD in political science. Do want to subscribe, turn on your notification button, catch up with my past videos, and of course I have great interesting videos coming your way. Till I see you again, always remember that I love you all sincerely.